Giving the infertile princess to a human seemed like a joke, until she returned with a baby with golden spires of the Zolarian palace, reached toward the purple sky like fingers grasping for hope. Inside the grand throne room, Princess Lyra stood. Before her father's court, her silver hair catching the light from the crystal windows. She was beautiful, intelligent, and loved by the people, but she carried a burden that made the nobles whisper behind their hands. Emperor Valdres sat on his throne made of pure starstone, his face heavy with worry. His daughter was 35 years old and had no children. The royal doctors had tried everything. They had given her medicines from distant worlds. They had performed ceremonies under 3 different moons. They had even consulted the ancient healing crystals of their ancestors. Nothing worked. The bloodline must continue, whispered Lord Vex to Lady Nara as they stood in the shadows of the great pillars, without an heir from Princess Lyra. The throne will pass to her cousin Prince Kaler. Lady Nara nodded slowly. Prince Kaler was known for his cruelty and his love of war. The people feared him. But what can we do? The princess cannot have children. The doctors have said it many times. The court had been discussing this problem for months. Some suggested that Princess Lyra should step aside and let Prince Kaler take the throne. Others believed she should adopt a child from a noble family. But the princess refused both ideas. She believed that someday, somehow, she would have a child of her own. Then the humans arrived. Captain Marcus Chen stepped out of his ship onto the landing platform of the Zolarian capital city. He was tall for a human, with dark hair and kind eyes. Behind him walked his team of diplomats and scientists. They had traveled for many months to reach this world, hoping to make friends with the Zolarian Empire. The Zolarians had heard stories about humans. They were a young species that had only recently learned to travel between stars. Most Zolarians thought humans were simple and not very smart. They lived short lives and had weak bodies. But they had something the Zolarians wanted: rare metals. From their mining worlds, "Welcome to Zolaria," said Lord Vex as he greeted the human delegation. His voice was polite, but his eyes showed no warmth. "We hope your journey was pleasant." "Thank you for having us," Captain Chen replied. He spoke the Zolarian language well, though with a strange accent. "We are honored to be here." The humans were taken to guest quarters in the palace. For 3 days, they met with Zolarian trade officials. The talks went well. The humans offered metals and technologies. The Zolarians promised food and medicines in return. But Lord Vex and his friends were planning something else. "I have an idea," Lord Vex said to his group of loyal nobles. They met in secret in his private chambers. "What if we give the princess to the human captain?" The others stared at him in surprise. Lady Nara spoke first. "What do you mean, give her to him?" "A marriage," Lord Vex explained with a sly smile. "We tell them it is a great honor, a union between our species. The captain seems like a decent man. He will treat her well. But since she cannot have children, there will be no heirs. When she dies, Prince Kaler becomes the next ruler." Lord Brix, a fat man with small eyes, laughed quietly. "And if by some miracle she does have a child with a human, it will be half-human. The people will never accept a half-breed as their ruler." The plan seemed perfect to them. They would look generous and diplomatic. The princess would be gone from the line of succession, and Prince Kaler, who had promised them wealth and power, would become emperor. They brought their idea to Emperor Valdres the next morning. The old emperor listened carefully as Lord Vex explained the benefits of a marriage between his daughter and the human captain. "It would show our commitment to friendship with the humans," Lord Vex said. "Princess Lyra is beloved by our people. Giving her to their leader would be seen as a great gift." Emperor Valdres was tired and sad about his daughter's situation. The idea of a political marriage made sense to him. "But will she agree to this?" he asked. "She is a loyal daughter," Lady Nara said smoothly. "She will do what is best for the Empire." That afternoon, Princess Lyra was called to her father's private study. The room was filled with books and star charts. The emperor sat behind his desk, looking older than his years. "My daughter," he began softly, "we have an opportunity to help our people. Princess Lyra listened as her father explained the marriage proposal. Her heart sank with each word. She had hoped to marry for love someday, even though she knew royal marriages were usually political. But to be sent away to live with strangers seemed like exile. The human captain seems honorable, her father continued. His people speak well of him. You would be treated with respect. But father, princess, Lyra said quietly, I cannot give him children. What kind of marriage would that be? Emperor Valgis reached across the desk and took her hand. Sometimes we must make sacrifices for the good of our people. This marriage would secure peace and trade with the humans, and perhaps, being away from our world might help with your condition. Princess Lyra knew she had little choice. Her duty was to her people and her family. If this marriage would help the empire, she would accept it. If this is what you wish, father, I will do it. The next day, Lord Vex approached Captain Chen with the proposal. The human captain was surprised and honored. He had noticed the princess during the formal dinners and had been impressed by her intelligence and grace. This is a great honor, Captain Chen said. But I want to be sure the princess agrees to this freely. Of course, Lord Vex replied, hiding his irritation at the human's concern. Princess Lyra is eager for this union. She believes it will bring our peoples closer together. When Captain Chen met with Princess Lyra privately, he saw the sadness in her eyes despite her polite words. Are you certain this is what you want? He asked gently. Princess Lyra looked at this human who showed her more consideration than her own nobles. I want what is best for my people, she answered. If you will have me, I will be honored to be your wife. 3 days later, they were married in a simple ceremony. The Zalarian nobles smiled and congratulated themselves on their clever plan. Princess Lyra said goodbye to her father and her world, not knowing that she was about to discover something that would change everything. As their ship left Zalaria's atmosphere, Captain Chen looked at his new wife. I know this wasn't your choice, he said kindly, but I promise you, I will do everything I can to make you happy. Princess Lyra gazed out at the stars, wondering what her new life would bring. Behind them, the nobles who had planned her exile were already making plans for Prince Kaller's future reign. None of them imagined that their cruel joke would soon become their greatest mistake. The human ship knew her eyes and moved through space like a silver needle threading through the darkness. Princess Lyra stood at the large window in her quarters, watching the stars drift by. She had been traveling for 2 weeks now, and everything felt strange and new. Her room was different from her palace chambers back home. The walls were white metal instead of carved stone. The bed was smaller and simpler. But Captain Chen had given her the best guest quarters on the ship, and she could see he had tried to make her comfortable. A soft knock came at her door. Princess Lyra, may I come in? It was Captain Chen's voice. Please, enter, she replied. Turning from the window, Captain Chen stepped inside, carrying a tray with food. I thought you might be hungry. Our cook prepared something special tonight. Lyra looked at the meal with curiosity. The food looked strange but smelled good. Thank you, Captain. You are very kind. Please, call me Marcus, he said with a gentle smile. We are married now, after all. Lyra nodded, though the word married still felt strange to her. This was nothing like the royal marriages she had seen in her father's court. Marcus treated her like a friend, not like a political prize. Marcus, she said carefully, may I ask you something? Of course, ask me anything. Why did you agree to marry me? You knew it was a political arrangement. You knew I was being sent away from my home. Marcus sat down in the chair across from her. His face became serious. Because when I looked at you during that first dinner, I saw someone who was intelligent and strong. Someone who cared about her people. I thought maybe we could help each other. I'm not just a soldier, Lyra. I'm also an explorer. I want to learn about different worlds and different people. And you have knowledge about the galaxy that could help my people survive out here. Over the next few days, Marcus began including Lyra in his daily work. He showed her the ship's navigation systems and asked for her advice about trade routes. Lyra was surprised to find that her royal education in diplomacy and strategy was useful here. The Forthan systems are dangerous, she warned as they studied star maps. The merchants there are known for breaking agreements. Your people should be careful. What about the Kephian sector? Marcus asked, pointing to another area on the map. Better, the Kephians value honor and business. If you make a fair deal with them, they will keep their word. Lieutenant Sarakim, the ship's doctor, watched these conversations with interest. She was a young woman with short black hair and smart eyes. She had noticed that Princess Lyra seemed sad most of the time, and she wondered why. One day, Sarah approached Lyra after the princess had finished helping Marcus with navigation planning. Princess, may I speak with you privately? Sarah asked. Of course, Dr. Kim. They went to the medical bay, a clean white room filled with equipment Lyra had never seen before. Sarah gestured for her to sit on the examination table. I hope you don't mind me asking. Sarah began, but Captain Chen told me about your medical condition. I was wondering if you would let me run some tests. Lyra's face became sad. Many doctors have examined me, Dr. Kim. The best healers in the Zolarian Empire have tried to help me. There is nothing you can find that they have not already discovered. Maybe not, Sarah agreed. But human medicine is different from Zolarian medicine. We might see things in a different way. Lyra had heard this hope before, but something about the young doctor's confidence made her agree. Very well, but please do not tell Marcus if you find nothing new. I do not want him to think less of me. Why would he think less of you? Sarah asked, surprised, because I cannot give him children. What good is a wife who cannot continue the family line? Sarah looked at her with kind eyes. Princess, I think you don't understand humans very well yet. Marcus didn't marry you to have children. He married you because he respects you. The test took several hours. Sarah used machines that could look inside Lyra's body without cutting her open. She took samples of her blood and studied them under powerful microscopes. All the while, she asked Lyra questions about her home world. Tell me about the air on Zelaria. Sarah said as she worked. What does it smell like? It has a metallic smell, Lyra replied, from the copper mountains that surround our cities. The air shimmers sometimes, especially near the mines. Interesting. And you've lived your whole life there? Yes, until now. Why do you ask? Just curious, Sarah said, but her mind was working on an idea. 3 days later, Sarah called Lyra back to the medical bay. This time, Marcus came with her. I've found something interesting, Sarah announced. Princess, your reproductive system is perfectly healthy. Lyra stared at her in disbelief. That cannot be true. The royal doctors said. The royal doctors were looking at the wrong thing, Sarah interrupted gently. They assumed the problem was in your body, but I think the problem is in your environment. She showed them images on her computer screen. These are your test results. Now look at this. She pulled up another screen showing chemical formulas. The air on Zelaria contains high levels of copper particles and other metals. For most Zolarians, this is normal. But you have a rare genetic variation that makes you sensitive to these metals. They've been interfering with your hormone production your entire life. Marcus leaned forward. Interested. So being away from Zelaria might help. More than help, Sarah said with excitement. Princess, your body is already starting to function. Normally, the blood tests I took yesterday show hormone levels that are completely different from 3 weeks ago. Lyra felt her heart beating fast. Are you saying I might be able to have children? I'm saying you probably always could have, if you hadn't been breathing those metal particles every day of your life. Tears came to Lyra's eyes. For 20 years, she had carried the shame of being unable to continue her family's bloodline. She had been told by the best doctors in the Empire that she was broken, incomplete. But how did the Zolarian doctors miss this? Marcus asked. Because they were looking for a disease or a defect, Sarah explained. They never considered that the environment itself might be the cause. It's like trying to grow a plant in poisoned soil and wondering why it won't bloom. Lyra wiped her tears and looked at both of them. You have given me hope I thought was lost forever. How can I ever repay this kindness? Marcus took her hand gently. You don't need to repay anything. We're partners now. We help each other. Over the following weeks, Lyra began to change. The sadness that had always shadowed her started to fade. She smiled more often and spoke with greater confidence. She began working closely with Marcus on trade negotiations and ship operations. The crew members noticed the change too. Lieutenant Park, the communications officer, often saw her laughing at Marcus's jokes during dinner. Engineer Thompson asked for her advice on dealing with alien technology they had traded for. "She's not what I expected from a princess," Thompson told Sarah one day. "She actually listens when we explain how things work, and some of her ideas are really smart." "What did you expect?" Sarah asked. "Someone spoiled and demanding, I guess. But she works as hard as anyone on this ship." As they traveled toward the human colony world of New Geneva, Lyra found herself looking forward to the future for the first time in years. She had found not just hope for children, but something she had never expected to find in an arranged marriage. She had found friendship, respect, and the beginning of something that felt like love. But back on Zelaria, the nobles who had planned her exile were making new plans. They had received reports that the human trade mission was going well. Soon they would need to ensure that Prince Kaler was ready to take the throne. They had no idea that their carefully planned scheme was about to collapse in the most unexpected way possible. The colony world of New Geneva spread out below them like a green jewel against the black of space. Princess Lyra pressed her face to the window of the shuttle. As they descended through the atmosphere, she had never seen a world quite like this. "It's beautiful," she whispered to Marcus, who sat beside her. "Wait until you see it up close." He replied with pride in his voice. "The colonists have worked for 10 years to build something special here." The shuttle landed at a simple spaceport, made of metal and concrete. As they walked down the ramp, Lyra was surprised by what she saw. Instead of the grand ceremony she expected, a small group of people waited to greet them. They wore simple work clothes and had dirt under their fingernails. Marcus called out a tall woman with gray hair. "Welcome home, Maria." Marcus hugged the woman warmly. "Lyra, this is Maria Santos, our colony administrator. Maria, this is my wife, Princess Lyra of Zelaria." Maria looked at Lyra with curious but friendly eyes. "Welcome to New Geneva, Princess. We've heard a lot about you. Please, just call me Lyra," the princess said. "I hope to learn much about your world over the next few days." Lyra discovered that life on New Geneva was completely different from royal life on Zelaria. There were no servants waiting to dress her or bring her meals, no guards following her everywhere, no formal ceremonies for every small occasion. Instead, she found something she had never experienced before: freedom. Marcus showed her around the colony's main settlement. The buildings were simple but sturdy. Gardens grew between the houses, filled with vegetables and flowers from both earth and local plants that had adapted to the new world. "Everyone works," Marcus explained as they watched children playing in a schoolyard. "Doctors, teachers, engineers, farmers, we all do our part. There's no nobility here, no servants. Just people trying to build a good life." "But who makes the important decisions?" Lyra asked. "We vote on most things. When there's a problem, we talk it through until we find a solution everyone can accept." This idea fascinated Lyra. On Zelaria, the emperor made all important decisions. The nobles advised him, but in the end, his word was law. Here, ordinary people had a voice in their own lives. Dr. Sarah Kim had set up a small medical clinic in the colony. She invited Lyra to help her with some of her research. "I'm studying how different species adapt to new environments," Sarah explained as they worked in her laboratory. "Your case is particularly interesting." "What do you mean?" Lyra asked, carefully labeling sample containers. Double quotes. "Well, you've been away from Zelaria for 2 months now. Your body has continued to change. Look at this." Sarah showed her a chart on her computer screen. "Your hormone levels are now completely normal for a Zelarian female of your age." Lyra studied the numbers, though she didn't understand all of them. "What does this mean for the future?" "It means," Sarah said with a smile, "that if you and Marcus decide to have children, There should be no medical barriers. But Sarah had discovered something else, something even more exciting. She had been comparing Lyra's genetic information with human genetic patterns. What she found surprised her. "Marcus, I need to show you both something," Sarah said that evening. She had asked them to come to her clinic after dinner. They sat in her small office while Sarah pulled up information on her computer. "I've been studying genetic compatibility between humans and Zolarians," she began. "Most scientists assume that our species were too different to have children together. But the data shows something remarkable." She showed them colorful charts and diagrams. "Humans and Zolarians share more genetic similarities than anyone realized. Not only could you have children together, but those children would likely inherit the best traits from both species." Marcus looked surprised. "You mean?" "I mean that human Zolarian children would probably be stronger, smarter, and more adaptable than either parent species alone. They might live longer than humans, but mature faster than Zolarians. They could have human creativity and Zolarian strategic thinking." Lyra felt her heart racing. "Are you certain of this?" "As certain as I can be without actual examples to study," Sarah replied. "But the genetic evidence is very clear." Over the following weeks, Lyra threw herself into colony life with enthusiasm. She helped Maria plan new settlements. She worked with the farmers to improve crop yields using knowledge from Zolarian agriculture. She even spent time in the workshops, learning how human technology worked. "She's amazing," said Tom Bradley, the colony's chief engineer, to Marcus one day. "Yesterday she suggested a new way to build our water filtration system. Her idea would save us months of work." "She's always been smart," Marcus replied. "She just never had a chance to use her abilities before." But it was while working on the colony's defense planning that Lyra made a disturbing discovery. She had been reviewing communication logs, trying to understand human military tactics, when she found something that made her blood run cold. "Marcus." She called urgently from the communications center. "You need to see this immediately." Marcus hurried over to where Lyra sat before a bank of screens. Her face was pale with worry. "I was studying your communication protocols when I found these intercepted messages," she said, pointing to text on the screen. "They're in Zolarian military code." Marcus read the translated messages, his expression growing more serious with each line. The messages were from the Zolarian Imperial Fleet, discussing attack plans against human colonies. "They're planning to invade human space." Lyra whispered, "My cousin Prince Kaler has convinced the military that humans are becoming too strong, too dangerous to ignore." When Marcus asked, "According to this, the fleet is already being assembled. The attack will come in 6 months, maybe less." Marcus immediately called an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. They gathered in the main meeting hall, their faces grim as they listened to the news. "We have to warn Earth and the other colonies," said Maria Santos. "Already done," Marcus replied. "But our nearest fleet units are months away. If the Zolarians attack the outer colonies first, thousands of people will die." Lyra stood up slowly. All eyes in the room turned to her. "There might be another way," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Kim. "The attack plan assumes that humans will be caught by surprise. But if someone could convince the Zolarian nobles that this war would be a mistake, if someone could show them that cooperation would be more profitable than conquest." "You're talking about going back," Marcus said, understanding immediately. "I have to try," Lyra replied. "I know the court. I know which nobles might listen to reason. And now I have something they never expected me to have." She placed her hand on her stomach. 3 weeks earlier, Dr. Kim had confirmed what Lyra had begun to suspect. She was pregnant. "You have a choice that could change everything," Sarah said softly. "If I return to Zolaria carrying a human child," Lyra continued, "it will prove that the marriage wasn't the joke they thought it was. It will force them to reconsider their plans." Marcus took her hand. "It's dangerous. If they see you as a traitor, then our child will grow up in a galaxy at war," Lyra replied. "I won't let that happen." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Princess Lyra, who had been sent away as a political inconvenience, was now their best hope. for preventing a war that could destroy both species. But none of them knew that back on Zelaria, Lord Vex had already received reports about the failed marriage. He believed Princess Lyra was living in exile and shame, forgotten by everyone. He had no idea that the joke he had played was about to become the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history. 2 years had passed since Princess Lyra left Zelaria. Now she stood at the viewport of the human diplomatic ship Peacemaker, watching her home world grow larger as they approached in her arms. She held her daughter Arya, a beautiful child with silver hair like her mother and dark eyes like her father. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked softly, standing beside her. He wore the formal uniform of a human ambassador, but his face showed the worry of a husband and father. "I have to be," Lyra replied, gently rocking Arya. "Too many lives depend on what happens in the next few days." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Princess Lyra," came the voice of Captain Torres. "We're receiving a message from Zolarian Traffic Control. They're surprised to hear from you." Lyra smiled slightly. "I imagine they are. Till then, Princess Lyra requests permission to land at the Royal Spaceport. Tell them I'm coming home, on the surface of Zelaria." The message sent shockwaves through the palace. Lord Vex was in the middle of a meeting with Prince Kaler when the news arrived. "She's returning," Prince Kaler snarled, his scarred face twisting with anger. "How is that possible? I thought you said the marriage was a failure. It was supposed to be." Lord Vex stammered, his usual confidence shaken. "The reports said she was living quietly in the human colonies. There was no mention of children." "Well, apparently there's a child now," Prince Kaler snapped. "A half-human heir that could challenge my claim to the throne." Emperor Valdris was in his private garden when they brought him the news. The old ruler had aged greatly in the 2 years since his daughter left. His hair had turned completely white, and he walked with a cane now. "My daughter is coming home?" he asked, hardly daring to believe it. "Yes, your majesty," said the messenger. "And she brings with her a child." Tears came to the old emperor's eyes. "A grandchild," he whispered. "After all these years, Lyra has given me a grandchild." The royal spaceport buzzed with activity as preparations were made for the princess's arrival. Word had spread through the capital city, and crowds began to gather. Princess Lyra had always been beloved by the common people, and they were excited to see her return. Lord Vex and his conspirators met in urgent session. "We have to control this situation," he told the others. "If the people see her with a healthy child, it will ruin everything we've worked for." "What do you suggest?" asked Lady Nara nervously. "We make sure they understand that the child is half-human," Lord Vex replied. "We remind them that no half-breed can rule the Zolarian Empire." But even as they plotted, Lord Vex felt uncertain. Princess Lyra had been gone for 2 years. People change. And she was returning at a very dangerous time, just as the military was preparing for war against the humans. The Peacemaker landed gracefully on the royal platform. A small crowd of officials waited, along with a much larger crowd of citizens who had gathered at the fences. To catch a glimpse of their returning princess, the ship's doors opened, and Princess Lyra stepped out. The crowd gasped. She looked completely different from the sad young woman who had left 2 years ago. She stood tall and confident, her silver hair shining in the sunlight. She wore a simple but elegant dress that showed she was proud of her role as both princess and mother. Behind her walked Marcus, carrying bags and looking around with interest at his first sight of Zelaria. But all eyes were on the bundle in Lyra's arms. "Citizens of Zelaria," Lyra called out in a clear, strong voice, "I present to you my daughter, Princess Arya." She lifted the baby so everyone could see. Arya looked around with bright, curious eyes. Unafraid of the crowd and the attention, the people cheered. They didn't care that the child was half-human. They saw their beloved princess, happy and healthy, with a beautiful baby. That was enough for them. Lord Vex stepped forward, forcing a smile onto his face. "Princess Lyra, welcome home. We are surprised by your return." "I'm sure you are, Lord Vex," Lyra replied coolly. "I have much to discuss with my father and the Royal Council." Emperor Valgers arrived as quickly as his old legs could carry him. When he saw his daughter and grandchild, he broke into the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him in months. "My dear daughter," he said, embracing her carefully, "you look wonderful. And this must be," he looked down at baby Arya with wonder, "your granddaughter." "Father, her name is Arya. She's beautiful," the emperor whispered, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. "She has your eyes. But I see strength in her face that reminds me of her father." Marcus bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, it's an honor to finally meet you properly." "The honor is mine, Captain Chen. You have made my daughter happy, and for that, you have my eternal gratitude." That evening, a great feast was held in the palace. Lords and ladies who had whispered about Lyra's exile now competed to congratulate her on her marriage and child. But Lyra noticed the false smiles and calculating looks during the feast. She stood and asked for permission to speak. The great hall fell silent. "My friends," she began, "I have returned to Zolaria not just as your princess, but as someone who has learned much about the galaxy beyond our world. I have lived among humans for 2 years. I have seen their colonies and worked alongside their people." Lord Vex shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Where was this leading? "I know there are those who believe humans are primitive and weak," Lyra continued. "I once thought the same thing. I was wrong. Humans are innovative, brave, and loyal. They solve problems in ways we never considered. They treat each other with respect regardless of birth or status." She paused, looking around the room. "They are also our friends. They have shown me nothing but kindness and honor. My husband Marcus represents the best of his people, just as I hope to represent the best of ours." Prince Kaler stood up abruptly. "Pretty words, cousin, but you've been gone for 2 years. You don't understand the current situation, don't I?" Lyra asked calmly. "I understand that some in this room believe war with the humans is necessary. I understand that military preparations are already underway." Shocked murmurs ran through the crowd. How did she know about the secret military plans? "I also understand," Lyra continued, "that this war would be a terrible mistake, one that would cost thousands of lives and gain us nothing." Lord Vex stood up, his face red with anger. "Princess, you speak of things you don't understand. The humans are expanding. Too quickly, they're becoming a threat to our empire." "The only threat," Lyra replied firmly, "comes from those who choose conflict over cooperation." She walked to the center of the room, still holding baby Arya. "This child represents something new. She is both human and Zolarian. She carries the best qualities of both species. She is living proof that we are stronger together than apart." Emperor Valgers looked around the room, seeing the division among his nobles. Some nodded in agreement with his daughter. Others looked angry and frustrated. "We will discuss these matters in the Royal Council tomorrow," he announced. "Tonight, we celebrate the return of Princess Lyra and the birth of Princess Arya." But even as the feast continued, Lyra knew the real battle was just beginning. She had returned home with proof that the nobles' plan had failed. She had a child, an heir, and the love of her people. Now she had to convince them to choose peace over war, cooperation over conquest. The future of 2 species depended on her success. In the shadows of the Great Hall, Lord Vex and Prince Kaler exchanged dark looks. Their carefully laid plans were crumbling, but they weren't defeated yet. The princess might have won this first battle, but the war for the throne was far from over. The Royal Council chamber had never seen a meeting like this one. Princess Lyra sat at the great circular table, holding baby Arya while presenting evidence of the planned military invasion. Holographic star maps floated in the air, showing fleet positions and attack routes. The human colonies are not defenseless, Lyra explained to the assembled nobles and military commanders. They know about our plans. Their fleets are already moving to defensive positions. Admiral Korax, the head of the Zolarian Imperial Navy, looked uncomfortable. "How could they know? Our communications were encrypted." "Because I told them," Lyra said simply. The room erupted in angry voices. Prince Kaler slammed his fist on the table. "Treason. She admits to betraying military secrets to the enemy." "The humans are not our enemies," Lyra replied calmly. Even as baby Arya began to fuss from all the shouting. They are potential allies, and I prevented a war that would have cost thousands of lives on both sides. Lord Vex stood up, his face twisted with rage. You have overstepped all bounds, princess. You were sent away to live quietly with your human husband. Instead, you returned spreading lies and defending aliens against your own people. My own people? Lyra asked, rising to her feet. Which people are those, Lord Vex? The nobles who sent me away like an unwanted burden, or the citizens who cheered when I returned with my daughter? Emperor Valdres had been sitting quietly, listening to the arguments. Now he spoke in a voice that commanded attention. Enough, he said firmly. Lyra, you say the humans know about our military plans. What has been their response? They have prepared their defenses. But they have not attacked, Lyra replied. Instead, they sent diplomatic messages requesting talks. They want to avoid war as much as we should. Should? Prince Kaler sneered. The Solarian Empire has never backed down from inferior species. And where has that attitude brought us? Lyra shot back. We are surrounded by enemies because we refuse to make friends. Our economy struggles because we won't trade fairly with other worlds. Our people suffer because their leaders are too proud to learn from others. She walked to the center of the room, baby Arya quiet now in her arms. I have seen what cooperation can accomplish. The human colonies prosper because different species work together. They share knowledge, technology, and resources. Pretty words, Lord Vex said coldly, but you still betrayed military secrets. That is treason, punishable by exile or death. Then rest me, Lyra said boldly. But first, let me show you what your joke has truly accomplished. She activated a small device Marcus had given her. New holographic displays appeared, showing technical documents and research data. Dr. Sarah Kim, the human physician who discovered the cause of my infertility, has been working with our own medical researchers together. They have developed treatments that could help thousands of Zolarian women who face the same problem I once did. Several nobles leaned forward with interest. Infertility was not uncommon among their people, and many families had suffered from it. The humans have also shared mining techniques that could increase our copper production by 40%. Lyra continued. And their agricultural methods could help us grow food in regions we thought were too poor for farming. She changed the display again. But most importantly, they have shown us what my daughter represents. The image showed genetic analysis data, simplified for easy understanding. Arya is not just half human and half Solarian. She carries enhanced traits from both species. She will likely be stronger and more intelligent than either of her parents. She represents the future evolution of both our peoples. Dr. Fincalex, the royal physician, studied the data with amazement. This is remarkable. If these projections are correct, children from human Zolarian unions could possess extraordinary abilities, which is exactly why we should be forming alliances, not planning wars, Lyra said. Imagine what our peoples could accomplish together instead of fighting each other. But Prince Kaler was not convinced. Even if what you say is true, the succession law is clear. Only a pure-blooded Zolarian can rule the Empire. Laws can be changed. Emperor Valdres said quietly. All eyes turned to him, especially when the current law no longer serves the best interests of our people. Lord Vex looked alarmed. Your Majesty, surely you're not considering. I am considering many things. The Emperor interrupted, including the fact that my daughter has shown more wisdom and courage in this room today than some people have shown in years of scheming. He stood up slowly, leaning on his cane. Lord Vex, did you think I didn't know about your little plot? Did you think I was unaware that you sent my daughter away hoping she would fail and disappear? Lord Vex's face went pale. Round the table, other conspirators shifted nervously. Instead, the Emperor continued, your plan gave her the opportunity to grow stronger and wiser. She has returned with solutions to problems we didn't even know we had. Father, Prince Kaler began, but the Emperor held up his hand for silence. You wanted war, Kaler. You convinced the military that conquest was better than diplomacy. But look what that has brought us. Our enemies gather strength while we waste resources on weapons and soldiers. Emperor Valdris walked over to where Lyra stood with baby Arya. My daughter offers us a different path, peace instead of war, cooperation instead of conquest, growth instead of stagnation. He gently took baby Arya from Lyra's arms. The little girl looked up at her grandfather with bright, curious eyes. This child represents hope. He said softly, hope for a future where our peoples don't just survive, but thrive together. He turned to face the council. I hereby order the immediate suspension of all military operations against human colonies. We will instead send diplomatic missions to begin peace negotiations. You cannot do this, Prince Kaler shouted, jumping to his feet. The council will never approve such weakness, won't we? Asked Lord Davin, one of the older nobles. Princess Lyra has shown us evidence that cooperation could make us stronger and richer than war ever could. Lady Mira nodded in agreement. My own daughter suffered from infertility for years. If the humans can help our people with this problem, perhaps we should listen to what else they have to offer. One by one, more nobles began to speak in favor of Lyra's proposal. They had seen the evidence. They had heard the arguments. Most importantly, they had seen how the common people welcomed their princess home with joy. Lord Vex and Prince Kaler found themselves increasingly isolated. Their carefully built coalition was crumbling as nobles chose practical benefits over peripheral warfare. This is not over, Prince Kaler hissed as he stormed out of the chamber. But everyone knew that it was 6 months later. Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of the royal palace, watching human and Zalarian ships landing together at the spaceport. The first joint trade expedition was preparing to depart for the outer colonies. Marcus joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Any regrets? He asked softly. About what? About coming back. About all the political fighting. About changing the course of galactic history. Lyra laughed, leaning back against his chest. The only thing I regret is that it took a joke marriage to bring our peoples together. In her arms, baby Arya gurgled happily, reaching for the stars visible in the afternoon sky. She would grow up in a galaxy where humans and Zalarians worked side by side, where differences were celebrated instead of feared. Emperor Valdris had officially named Lyra as his heir, and the council had voted to change the succession laws to allow human Zalarian children to inherit the throne. Lord Vex and his conspirators had been stripped of their titles and exiled to the outer planets. The joke that was meant to remove an inconvenient princess had instead created the first interspecies alliance in galactic history, and at the center of it all was a little girl who would someday rule not through conquest, but through the revolutionary idea that cooperation was stronger than conflict. The galaxy would never be the same.